So, let's start. Number 10. Linear A. The accountants of a lost civilization. Around 1,500 inscriptions survive from the Minoan palaces of Crete, dating between 1800 and 1450 BC. They are clay tablets, carefully incised and baked, that look entirely readable. They are accounting lists for grain, olive oil, wine, and livestock, with clear numerals, fractions, and totaled sums. Many were found at Knossos and Phaistos, stacked in palace archives exactly where scribes left them. Because the tablets are so organized and so numerous, they should be decipherable. The reason they are not is the language underneath. Many signs match the later Linear B script, which was deciphered in 1952 as an early form of Greek. Scholars assumed Linear A would fall quickly using the same values, but Linear A encodes a completely different language with no known relative. Theories range from a Semitic origin to a language isolate that died with Minoan civilization, but with no bilingual and no descendant language, the grammar cannot be tested. The sound values borrowed from Linear B produce only fragments, mostly place names and commodity words, never a full sentence. What remains locked is the entire internal world of Europe's first palace civilization. Its economy, its tributes, its religious offerings, and its personal names are preserved on tablets we can hold, count, and catalog but not read, which makes this extremely rare. The largest Bronze Age archive on Crete remains completely silent. Number 9. The Cretan hieroglyphs. Even older and even stranger. On Crete, before Linear A, there was an even older script, carved between 2100 and 1700 BC. It is known as Cretan hieroglyphs, and it is not related to Egyptian hieroglyphs. It survives on only about 100 objects, mostly clay seals and seal impressions, not tablets. The signs are intricate and tangible: eyes, hands, axes, boats, and star-like shapes pressed into soft clay, often only 3 or 4 signs long on a single seal face. The script predates Linear A and may represent the first writing on the island. That creates the central problem. With Linear A, scholars at least have hundreds of long accounting lists. With Cretan hieroglyphs, there is no long document at all, no palace archive, no continuous text to analyze for repetition or grammar. Theories range from the same language as Linear A to an entirely different language family. But with inscriptions averaging 3 signs and no bilingual ever found, grammar cannot be reconstructed. There is no clay equivalent of a Rosetta Stone to anchor the symbols to a known language. Because of this constant loss of material, most of the earliest writing from Crete has been destroyed. The seals that do survive were meant to mark ownership, not to tell stories. Their messages were personal and brief, and without longer texts, the logic behind the pictures remains invisible. Number 8. The Cypro-Minoan Script. 3 scripts in one. After Minoan Crete collapsed, its writing culture moved east to Cyprus. There, between 1550 and 1050 BC, a new script appears on about 250 objects across the island. This is Cypro-Minoan, and it is actually 3 undeciphered scripts counted as one. Archaeologists divide it into CM1, the most common, found across Cyprus, CM2, found only at the city of Ankami, and CM3, found on a single site in the Levant. They share signs but may encode different languages. Cyprus at this time stood at the crossroads of Egypt, Hatti, and Mycenaean Greece. It was the center of the copper trade, wealthy and cosmopolitan. Its tablets should be bilinguals. In reality, it became one of history's greatest linguistic dead ends. No bilingual has ever been found. No large corpus exists in any one variant. The longest inscription is a clay cylinder with 217 signs, but most are only a few signs scratched on clay balls, vases, and ivory. Theories range from an ancestor of later Cypriot Greek, which was deciphered because it used Greek language, to a substrate language of the island's original inhabitants. But without enough connected text in a single variant, the sound values cannot be confirmed. What is locked is the identity of the people who made Cyprus rich in the Bronze Age. Their names, their treaties, and their origins are written on objects in museums, which makes discoveries like this extremely rare and still completely unreadable. Number 7. Rongorongo. The wooden books that burned. Far from the Mediterranean, on Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, a different kind of loss occurred. This is the only writing system ever developed in Polynesia. In the 1860s, missionaries and colonists recorded hundreds of wooden boards covered in neat rows of glyphs. They were then burned as pagan objects. Only 26 boards survive today. Each board holds rows of stylized figures, men with bird heads, frigate birds, plants, turtles, and geometric shapes, carved with obsidian flakes into hard wood. The script is written in reverse bostraphodon, meaning each line is upside down relative to the next, so the reader must rotate the board 180 degrees at the end of every line. Attempts to decipher it fail for 3 reasons. First, no fluent speaker was left alive after disease and slave raids in the 1860s. Second, The glyphs appear to be both sound signs and idea signs, which complicates analysis. Third, there is no bilingual key. Theories range from a genealogy of chiefs to a lunar calendar for navigation, but with only 26 short texts and no way to test readings against a known language, the content cannot be verified. What could be preserved is the history of one of the most isolated societies on Earth. Its migrations, its ancestry, and its star navigation across the Pacific. The boards exist, photographed and scanned, but their voices were removed when the larger library was destroyed. Number 6. The Indus Script, 4,000 seals from a silent city. Between 2600 and 1900 BC, cities larger and more planned than anything in contemporary Egypt covered the Indus Valley. Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa had brick streets, drainage systems, and granaries, stretching across more land than Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. They left behind around 40 inscriptions. That should be enough to decode any script. In reality, it is not. The inscriptions are on square steatite seals, pottery, and copper tablets. The average length is 5 signs. The longest known inscription has only 34 signs. There are no long texts, no clay tablets, no wall inscriptions, and no archive. To determine the age of these cities, scientists use radiometric dating and stratigraphy, placing the script at around 2500 BC. To analyze the signs, researchers have used computational analysis to track frequency and position, methods similar to those used for cracking codes. Theories range from a Dravidian language ancestral to Tamil, to an early Sanskrit dialect, to a non-linguistic system of symbols, but with no bilingual, no long text, and no known descendant language that can be proven to be related, no reading can be confirmed. The signs show clear patterns of a real writing system, but the language behind them has no anchor. What remains unreadable could transform our understanding of early civilization. If decoded, it would reveal whether the Indus cities were a kingdom, a trading league, or something entirely different, and it would rewrite the origin of religious thought in India. We have their seals, their cities, and their weights and measures. We simply cannot read a single name of a ruler, and that brings us to number 5. Proto-Elamite, the first business records that vanished. If the Indus Script is frustrating because we can't read it, this one is frustrating because we shouldn't be unable to read it. This is accounting, not poetry, not mythology, just grain and sheep. Around 3100 BC, in what is now southwestern Iran, in the city of Susa, a new administration needed a way to track its wealth. At the exact same time, the Sumerians in Mesopotamia were inventing cuneiform, the first true writing on Earth. These people invented their own system completely from scratch, completely independent. The oldest undeciphered tablets ever discovered on Earth. We have around 1,600 of them. They are small, pillow-shaped clay tablets, and they look organized. On the surface, you see a complex system of numerical signs, dots and lines representing numbers, followed by abstract, highly geometric pictographs. A jar shape that appears next to a grain count, a shape that always appears with livestock. It is without a doubt the world's oldest undeciphered accounting system. And we understand the numbers. That is the only part that makes sense. We know this is a record of 10 units of barley given to this person, or 20 heads of cattle received from that village. It is the first spreadsheet in human history. But the signs themselves, the actual things being counted and the people doing the counting, are totally opaque. There are over 1,400 distinct signs, and they are brutally abstract. No pictures of kings, no pictures of gods, just stark, angular symbols that were designed to be pressed into clay quickly. For decades, scholars assumed this was simply an early form of Elamite, the language that would be spoken in that same region for the next 2,000 years. It was a logical assumption. It was also probably wrong. The latest research shows Proto-Elamite has no demonstrable connection to later Elamite at all. It appears to be a complete isolate, which explains why it fails every method we have to decode it. It was invented independently, used for maybe 2 centuries for bureaucratic bookkeeping, and then it simply vanished. No children, no descendants, no evolution. The culture abandoned it and switched to a completely different writing system. It is a dead end on the tree of literacy. We have 1,600 receipts for a vanished economy, written in a language that left no family behind to translate it. We know how much grain they had. We will never know what they called themselves. Number 4. Linear Elamite and the bilingual that wasn't enough. If Proto-Elamite was the accounting system that vanished, Linear Elamite was supposed to be the one that survived long enough to be solved. And for a moment, we thought it was. This is a second, entirely distinct Elamite script. It appears almost 1,000 years after Proto-Elamite disappears, around 2300 to 1800 BC. The signs are different. Instead of abstract geometry, you get flowing, linear symbols, carved not on administrative tablets but on monumental stone, on statues, and most importantly, on silver beakers dedicated to gods. It was a script meant to be seen, but it was just as unreadable. For over a century, we had only about 40 inscriptions in total. 40. That's not a language, that's a collection of business cards. No matter how brilliant you are, you cannot reconstruct a grammar from 40 short dedications. Then, in 2022 came the breakthrough we had all been waiting for. A team of French archaeologists published their work on a set of newly studied silver beakers that had been sitting in private collections. On these beakers, the same text was written twice, once in Linear Elamite and once right next to it in Akkadian cuneiform, a language we have read fluently for over 100 years. A bilingual, the exact same tool that allowed us to crack Egyptian hieroglyphs with the Rosetta Stone. This should have been the end of the story. Headlines around the world announced that Linear Elamite had been deciphered. It wasn't enough. Here is why the bilingual failed. The Akkadian text says, I, Puzur-Sushinak, king of Awan, dedicated this beaker. The Linear Elamite text next to it says something that is clearly a dedication from a king named Puzur-Sushinak. So we can sound out his name. We can identify the word for king. We can guess maybe 10 or 15 signs. But that is it, because the rest of the corpus is so tiny. We have no long texts, we have no stories, no laws, no letters. The bilingual gave us a name and a title, but it did not give us verbs, it did not give us syntax, it did not give us grammar. Many of the readings proposed in 2022 are already fiercely contested by other linguists. Is that sign pronounced pa or ba? Does that sequence mean temple or palace? With only 40 inscriptions, there is no way to test it. Linear Elamite proves the most terrifying rule of this hunt. Even when the universe hands you the key, if the door is too small, you still cannot get through. It shows you that a bilingual is not magic. Without volume, a language stays dead. And that forces you to ask, what if we never get more than 40? Which brings us to a book that has plenty of volume and still refuses to be read. Number 3, the Voynich Manuscript. A book that should not exist. There is no other object like it in any library on Earth. It is 240 pages of fine vellum, radiocarbon dated with certainty to the early 1400s. It is not a fragment. It is a complete bound book, written in an iron-gall ink that has been tested and is medieval. It was owned by emperors. And every single page is written in a language that does not exist. The text itself flows perfectly. It has consistent grammar, repeated words, sentence structure, paragraphs. Statistical analysis shows it has all the patterns of a real human language. It is not random gibberish. Whoever wrote it was writing something they understood. And then there are the illustrations. This is what makes it truly unsettling. Hundreds of plants drawn with exquisite detail, roots and leaves and flowers, plants that exist nowhere on Earth. No botanist in 600 years has been able to identify a single one. There are circular astronomical charts with unknown constellations, and biological pages showing naked women bathing in strange green plumbing that connects in ways that make no anatomical sense. For 600 years, the greatest codebreakers in history have tried to read it. William Friedman, the man who broke Japan's codes in World War II, spent his retirement trying and failed. Modern supercomputers have thrown every cipher algorithm at it and failed. Artificial intelligence has analyzed it and concluded it is a language, but no language in its database matches it. So what is it? The theories are as strange as the book. Is it a cipher, an incredibly complex medieval encryption of Latin or German that we still cannot crack? Is it a constructed language, a work of genius invented centuries before anyone else thought of inventing a language? Is it the written form of a spoken dialect from a lost community that was wiped out? Or is it the most elaborate hoax ever created, a meaningless book made by a con artist to sell to a gullible emperor? We don't know, because there is no context, there is no bilingual, no related text, no author. A book should not be able to exist like this, completely isolated from the rest of human knowledge, yet here it is, sitting in a vault at Yale University staring back at us. It has outlasted every person who has tried to read it. Number 2, the Rohonc Codex and the Book of the Unknown Alphabet. If the Voynich is famous, this one is its darker, lesser-known sibling, and in many ways, it is even more impossible. It is housed in the library of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. It is 448 pages long, not a few tablets, not a handful of beakers. 448 pages of dense, continuous text. It is one of the most unsettling manuscripts ever discovered. The paper itself has been dated to the 1500s, but the script is like nothing else on Earth. It uses an alphabet of nearly 200 unknown symbols. Think about that. English has 26 letters. The largest known alphabet in history has around 70. This book uses almost 200 distinct characters. No known alphabet on Earth needs that many symbols unless each symbol is a word. But the structure looks like an alphabet. with letters forming words and words forming sentences. And the illustrations make it even more confusing. On one page, you see a scene that is clearly Christian, Christ on the cross. On the next, you see Islamic crescent moons and pagan sun symbols, all mixed together in a way that no Orthodox religion of the 1500s would ever allow. The text flows with what looks like military scenes, religious scenes, everyday life, but you cannot tell which way to read it. Does it go left to right to left, top to bottom? No one can even agree on the direction. The theories are desperate. Is it ancient Hungarian written in a secret code? Is it the lost language of the Dacians, a people conquered by the Romans 2,000 years ago? Is it an elaborate cipher that uses multiple languages at once? Or is it the single most complex hoax ever created, a book that took years to write with the sole purpose of being unreadable? Why it remains unsolved comes down to that alphabet. With 200 symbols, statistical analysis breaks down. The text direction is unclear, so you don't even know where one word ends and the next begins. We have an enormous volume of text, but it is completely opaque. It is a library in a bottle, sealed so tightly that even 448 pages is not enough to open it. And that leaves us with the final truth. Number 1. The unread libraries. Why some will never be decoded. We have climbed this list looking for a single solution, a single brilliant breakthrough. But number 1 is not one script, it is all the others. Because for every famous mystery we just covered, there are 100 more you have never heard of. The Zapotec script, carved into the buildings of Monte Alban in Mexico, the writing of the people who built cities before the Maya. We have hundreds of inscriptions. We cannot read them. The Olmec script, from the mother culture of all Mesoamerica, little more than a few blocks and figurines, possibly the oldest writing in the Americas, silent. The Tartaria tablets, 3 small clay tablets from Romania, dated to 5500 BC, thousands of years before writing should have existed in Europe. If they are writing, they rewrite human history. We don't know if they even are writing. Thousands of them. Thousands of unread libraries sitting in museum basements right now. And this is where every open loop we planted closes, because here is the twist. We assumed decoding was just a matter of time and intelligence. It isn't. To decode a lost writing system, you need one of 3 things. You need massive volume, thousands and thousands of texts so you can find patterns. You need a bilingual, a Rosetta Stone that says the same thing in a language you already know. Or you need a descendant, a daughter language that is still alive today that you can trace it back to. Many of these scripts have none of them. Proto-Elamite has volume but no bilingual and no descendant. Linear Elamite got a bilingual but has no volume. The Voynich has volume but no context at all. The Indus Script has nothing. Some languages are true isolates. They were born, they lived, and they died with no children. No one alive today speaks anything related to them. No bilingual was ever made, and without that, no amount of genius will ever solve them. The math doesn't work, which means this is not a temporary mystery. This is a permanent wall. Entire histories, entire religions, entire sciences, entire names of kings and gods and common people are right here in front of us. We have their words in our hands. We can touch them, and we will never know what they say. The libraries will stay unread forever.